How y'all doing?
Hi.
It's all right. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Dunn, Chief Executive Officer of the National Coalition of Black Media Professionals, and welcome to our IMEX edition of our speaker series, Strength and Resilience. Ain't that cool?
Yes.
It's our first
Strength
time. It's our first time.
and resilience.
It's our first time, right? So we've had a multitude of people come who are members here at the organization to talk about their journeys, to hopefully inspire each of you, not just those in person, but also virtually. We're going to take this, make it into a podcast, and push it out via our LinkedIn. So make sure you join us on our LinkedIn page, all right? Today we have Tess Vismale from iSocial Execution Incorporated, and this badge says, and it's not me, but it says, I am the just what it says, right?
Yeah.
That's what it says.
But it's a sticker for all.
Oh, sticker for all. That's what's up. So let's talk about you. So how did you get into the space, and why do you consider yourself to be the
Oh. Well, I have been a meeting planner for about 30 years. I've been a consistent meeting planner. I've worked on nonprofit, corporate, association, academics, and I've managed conference centers. So it all happened with my love of production. I learned, my sister was actually a hairstylist, so she used to produce the shows, and she worked for a hair care products company, actually M&M Products Company. She produced all of their trade shows, fashion as well as event, and technically nowadays we call it event marketing. So she would have me tag along with her, and I learned how to see the back end of what an event was like. So that's why I love production. So I've always approached how I plan events from the end design forward, as opposed to how normally people probably do it from beginning to end. So I would see what the AV tech needs to do. I would see what the stylists needed to do on the platform, what the makeup artists had to do. I was even moved on to doing events for Macy's and special events and learning how to perfect the last look before it actually went on stage. And that has to have a planning mind to plan it out well for it to run smoothly. And that's kind of how I fell into it. And I didn't realize it because she did marketing and public relations after that, like in her second life. And I realized that she was great at planning, but she was not great at executing. So it would come to the day of, and everything she planned, I'd be like, because we're 11 years apart, right? So I would be like the little girl trying to make sure that everything is okay that she asked me to do. But I realized this is what she said she wanted to do, but this is actually what happened. And I would have to help get things together and in order. So she got to the point where she called me the Northwest Mounted Police, because I would make sure.
Okay.
I didn't care
That sounds
who.
about right. You live it up
Literally,
to-
I wouldn't
live it
care
to
who
it
was
to
coming
today.
in the door at
Understood.
all. I would actually make sure that I didn't care if you were the president of the United States. If you weren't on my list, you couldn't get in the door, because that's what they said. You're
Top
grooming
flight security.
a child. Yes, exactly.
Understood.
And it happened because we worked
You have a
on
flashlight?
So we worked on so I think people know Rainbow Push Coalition, right? So Reverend Jackson, my parents did a lot of volunteering for them as I grew up. So my sister got the contract to help produce the very first Citizenship Education Fund. And that's when, at the point in time, he created the Wall Street Project. So that was when they actually had the opportunity to make sure that Black people were at the table and were stockholders, or at least a part of the board, to have voting decisions to make sure that the companies are paying attention to what we're doing. So that's how he created the Wall Street Project. So she actually produced the Wall Street Project event in New York City at the Plaza Hotel, and was the first person to produce an event on the floor of the stock exchange. So I was able to actually go through that, learn what that was like. And of course I was older at the time, but specifically, Clinton was a sitting president at the time. I was able to work with logistics there. So it's kind of like a backdoor way of coming into seeing it, and that's how I fell into loving technology to pull it together.
So let's back up just a little bit, because you jumped in the middle of it.
You
sure did. You just jumped right into
I
it.
try to help you.
No, don't do that. I got it. So you went to Spelman.
I did.
Yes. And then
Third generation, yes.
There you go. So we had a couple of Spelman grads that were on earlier. And so we did. And so you jumped from Spelman, then went to where before you get up? Let's just start there.
Okay, all right.
Jumped all
So I did. So I graduated from Spelman. I was the first person to be recruited outside the New England area to be a buyer for TJ Maxx in Boston at corporate office.
Okay.
So I had an opportunity because fashion was part of my events background along with foundation, right?
Okay.
So I got to live my dream in a sense. Went up, did that for a while, 2 years, and then I didn't really like how they were doing it because we worked in the corporate office versus the stores. But I wasn't a numbers cruncher. I needed to feel and be very creative, work on the right side of my brain. So the president of the company came to me and said, Tess, you're not happy, are you? He said, I'm placing you in public relations. So he moved me from buying over to public relations.
So did you tell him what you wanted, or he just saw your gift?
I told him some of the things I was interested in.
So you was ready when he asked the
Exactly.
question, you had to answer the question. There you go.
Exactly. I had to answer the question. And it was interesting enough, I was given that opportunity because my mentor was the first black buyer of Macy's and Bloomingdale's. And they were buyers together and had started as buyers. And this is the president of TJ Maxx.
Wow.
Right? And I finished in 91, not to date myself, but I finished in 91. So think about what that was like.
Yeah.
He was a black girl. Listen, I was the first person recruited outside of New England, not black, not white, period.
Period. Wow.
Coming into that situation. So I was able to do fashion as well as events and moving into designing some of the Dress for Success programs that TJ Maxx had, and I'm on corporate, so this is nationwide.
So what was the expectations when you walked into the room? You're the first of many.
Everything.
And everything. And so what was your confidence like? What was that journey mentally?
Think about this now. I'm coming from Spelman College, and I'm coming from being a black revolutionary to coming to what I thought was Boston, but it was Framingham, driving up with my sister and my mother and seeing sheep. Okay, sheep. And then I realized that the people who were in Framingham had never or very rarely drove from Framingham into Boston, which is not very many miles away. So you had people who were tunnel visioned and focused on just their area. You talk about regional, never leaving. So their mindset was totally different. So you imagine what a sister coming from Spelman was like going into an environment.
It was shock probably for you.
Yeah, and I was born in Chicago, so I'm a Chicago girl. I'm thinking I'm going to live in Boston.
Yeah.
But I didn't. It was very stressful. I learned back then that there was very few black people who were a part of, who went past 2 years from a professional environment to stay into Boston. Mostly 2 years max, go on professionally. The reason why that they were there in Boston is education. So they were at Harvard and BU and all of that. They would stay a little longer and really truly leave. So it was difficult.
So was there an appreciation, because Spelman is considered the top HBCU in the country, correct? And so when you walk into a boardroom or capacity of folks with the Harvard, et cetera, what was your confidence level walking in? Was it equal? Did you doubt yourself? Did you have mental kind of debilitation when you walked, because you weren't there? And HBCUs at the time may not have been as popular as they are currently. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So I had it twofold. So at TJ Maxx, I carried all of what I learned through. Like I said, third generation Spelman. I grew up with parents working in the civil rights. So I carried that with me. So the confidence was already built in me. However, at work, I had to learn how to play the game differently. In the South, racism is in your face. In the North, they act like they like you, and I didn't understand. No one schooled me quite that way. So people were nice to me and being treacherous at the same time, and I just went through lots and lots of guilt around that. But then on the other side, outside of work, then I'm dealing with all Spelman, Morehouse, and all the HBCUs who are at the Ivy Leagues, and we're around each other and we're feeding each other. So that's how I was able to lean into the National Alumni Association of Spelman, and I was president there and did a lot of things because I had to. The Coalition of 100 Black Women, seeking out our institutions in those environments, which helped that confidence level.
And so when you got into the room, you brought right out with you.
I had to.
And you left a legacy, because there's many buyers now that are of color, for sure, in that region too, I'm sure. And so you, as I read your resume, you also worked at Spelman for a little while, correct?
Yes.
Doing programming,
Uh-huh.
right?
I did.
So let's talk to that, and then we're going to get to the tech side because that's different than production.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
All right. Go ahead.
So I was alumni programs manager at Spelman for 6 years. And that is on the fundraising side. So we were the fundraisers. There's fundraisers and fundraisers underneath institutional
So I'm
events.
interrupt you. So how did you jump into that? Is that after TJ Maxx? Or is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I left Boston because I was so distraught.
Sure.
You want a story from me? No problem.
I do. That's
So
ain't that what it's, ain't that
I
what
left.
it say?
I left Boston because I was so distraught. People were like, "How did you stay that long?" Because most
Yeah.
people don't. I was there
Sure.
4 years, and this little bitty thing came to Atlanta called the Olympics. So I was like, "I'm gonna need to be
In
back in it."
1996, you worked at. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
So
what's
I actually wanted to. Well, different way though.
Okay.
So I wanted to be back into Atlanta for the Olympics because I wanted to work back with my mentor because Macy's, well, it was Rich's at the time, it became Macy's, was going to be doing a lot of programming. And I thought that I could come back. So before that happened, and I was kind of in my mindset, I was trying to find a way out because I just needed to walk away. It was too stressful. It was too racist. It was just too much. My only solace was going to the vineyard every other weekend. I was going to either be at the vineyard one weekend or I was visiting my family in New York the next. At 3:01, I was in my car driving to New York or I was on the ferry as fast as I could. That escapism, right?
Sure, sure.
So what happened is I had a girlfriend who was a makeup artist, and we all know what the union is like. So you could only, and Boston was one of those cities that you could only get into the union, get on a show from the union. So she said, "Tess, I need someone to do hair and makeup and be my second on this film that's coming up. Do you know anyone?" The Most High just whispered to me as I was speaking to her, and I said, "I'll do it."
Mm-hmm.
So I quit my job, gave them 30 days. I calculated that what she was paying me at that time was not far off from what I could be making 3 months working on a movie. So I did hair and makeup for film and television during that entire time to work on it. I hate that I didn't stay and join SAG at the time, which I should to this day. But I did that. And then once I did that and that ran its course, I came back for the Olympics and by the time of my birthday, so July in '96.
So I'm hearing a trend. So when you're asked the question, you have an answer.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I'm serious. I mean, isn't that what y'all hearing? That somebody asks her, "Can you do?" Is recommendation you say yourself?
I do.
Someone asks you, "Are you not happy?" You say, "No, I want this," and you've gotten it right.
Yeah.
I hear a trend. That's what I'm talking about.
I appreciate
I
you.
know. What you mean?
We do that for each
Oh,
other.
hey, all day, every day.
I've never noticed that. but
Dig.
thank you.
So, all right. So we jump there, right? And then we go from what the Spelman. Then we go. So entrepreneurship. Let's just
Yeah.
jump. Let's just jump to.
That's
So
fine.
so tell me about iSocial Institution and how that came about. What's the inspiration for it? What was the journey of saying, "Okay, I'm gonna jump"? Because you quit your job. Because
I
you
did.
got to think of leaving. You're going up. You get asked. You go up. You get asked. You go up. And you start your own.
Yeah.
Let's talk through that.
My father was an entrepreneur. He was an entrepreneur. My sister was an entrepreneur. My brother was an entrepreneur, and I did not want to be an entrepreneur at all because I saw the struggles that they'd gone through. So I kept saying to myself, "No, I can't go through that." But I didn't realize that I was destined to do it anyway. So I think when we talk about confidence levels just kept coming through that. So when the opportunity came, I just said, I've got to figure it out. So today they call it freelancing at that time because I quit and I had to come to Atlanta and figure out what I needed to do and take time off. And I did nothing for a good bit of time and then started back up again. And I started my company only in 2013, but I had been freelancing for about 10, 12 years after that. I freelanced for Spelman for maybe a year before I became permanent at Spelman. So that's kind of how my trajectory went. And then eventually I left Spelman after 6 years and I produced, I don't even know how many events. So anytime you think about reunion, homecoming, any of those, and if as alumni they go back on campus and they see what happens in the design of that event for alumni march through the arch, I designed that. Wow. The registration counters that happen at registration for reunion, there were nothing called that at that time. I designed that. And they're still doing those kinds of things. But, that is kind of the legacy that you kind of lead along the way. So entrepreneurship kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me towards it to where I just didn't have a choice but to do it. So I managed the conference center at Atlanta Tech after I left Spelman. So I had that experience. I worked at the Atlanta Botanical Garden producing and helping on that end of things, right? So I saw that side versus the planning side. So I could see back and forth, but I can't stand social, so I wasn't about to do that very long. Right? So, but again, it's helping you open your eyes more and more to what you want. So then in 2013, I met Dalia El-Ghazar, who was technically my client, and I met her at an MPI event. We were having our regional conference. She was the expert who we could choose to go to a lawyer or someone dealing with branding, and we could go around. And I decided I paid for that conference on my own, not with Spelman dollars at all. My membership was Spelman, but not with Spelman dollars. Met her, and I told her, I'm just tired. And she said, okay, well, let's have a date as to when you're about to quit your job and when you're going to do this. Literally, at hello, she did this. Walked me through it. I did it. I missed it maybe by a few months of that date, but I did. I stepped out and made my company at that much in 2013. But I had already been doing things along the way. You know how we do things on the side, and kept doing it. But when I fully left is when I happened to be in an event, a C-event, actually, dinner event. I sat next to a woman who was, let's say, the administrative assistant as chief of staff of Americold, which is the top Fortune 100 Atlanta-based cold refrigeration company, if you kind of think about. So anything you think about how we get our food on our table today, to go through that process, it's because of them. They ship them, around the world. She was working for that company and the CEO, and she said, I need a planner. And I told her that I'm interested. I said, I am a planner, but I don't have, I haven't, I'm thinking about quitting. She said, no, I want you. White woman. She said, no, I want you. I said, okay. So I found someone who thought like me, who was a part of MPI's chapter with me, because GAMPI, at the time I called it GAMPI, was my strength, and it was like my solace of everything I did. I volunteered, I went on and did all the things. And I found someone literally who thought like me and mirrored what I did, and I hired her to be the day-to-day planner for that particular conference and event. And we were doing their annuals and their internal meetings for a number of years, and then I quit my job at the Atlanta Tech and went full-time with my company. So that's how it happened.
So again, we hear you were asked a question, you had an answer, you went up, and you went up. Because every time you raise your hands, you go, what? I'm just saying. So I
love you.
I'm inspired just to hear that you had an answer for all the questions that you were asked, and this helped you, your trajectory of your career. I mean, that's dope. So my last question for you is Coalition. You currently serve on the board of Coalition.
I do.
Kind of talk about Coalition, what that means, and why people should join your organization.
Oh, wow. Well, like I told you, at my core, I was born from the loins of people who served our community. Like I said, Rainbow Push Coalition with Reverend Jackson and what he's done with Operation Push or Operation Breadbasket back in the 60s and the 70s. That's where I come from, south side of Chicago. That's in me. So I've chosen organizations to be a part of that mirror those types of efforts in pushing our community forward, period, across the board. No matter what I do with majority institutions or majority organizations, I'm always a part of something that helps us. So to me, the coalition was a natural progression of what supports our industry as well as our people. So why wouldn't I?
Let's give Tess some love, y'all. Let's give Tess some love. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you and honor you. Let folks know how they can follow you and support you right quick before I close it up.
Okay. So I am on LinkedIn as Tess Vismale. Also iSocialX or iSocial Execution. I'm on Instagram. But most importantly, just say hello.
So if you're not a member of Coalition, National Coalition of Black Media Professionals, go to ncbmp.com, ncbmp.com. We have joint membership with ASAE, PCMA, and MPI, and looking to do more with each of you, and even you. So ncbmp.com, ncbmp.com, and if you come to the convention in Birmingham, Alabama, November 13th to the 16th, you can register at ncbmp.com, ncbmp.com, to be a member and to come to our conference. And we do business with our friends.
That's right.
So if you ain't our friend,
it's
you
not
ain't
happening.
get no business.
Nope.
All right, thanks so much. See you guys next time.
Thank you for having me, Jason.